Are the pyramids mentioned in the Bible? Who built the Egyptian pyramids? Some modern historians suggest that the Egyptian pyramids might have been built from 6,000 to 10,000 years ago. As faithful believers in the Word of God, we cannot rely on these calculations, as the Bible tells us that God created everything only 6,000 years ago. Some biblical scholars advocate the idea that the pyramids were built before the Great Flood by Nephilim, sons of fallen angels and earthly women. This theory also does not stand up to criticism, as the pressure of water that had covered the whole planet would have ruined the pyramids to the ground. There is also a belief favored by or popular with UFO enthusiasts that the pyramids were built by Anunnaki or some other aliens who had visited our planet in the past. Obviously, the Christians cannot take such speculations seriously. It is known that the first settlers in Egypt migrated from the area of Shinar, near the Euphrates River, the location of the attempted construction of the Tower of Babel. The Tower of Babel itself was probably a ziggurat, pyramidal in shape, and made of baked bricks mortared with pitch. Check in Genesis 11, 1-9. Given their engineering experience acquired during the construction of the tower, it is easy to see how these settlers would begin building smaller pyramids of mud bricks and straw, called mastabas. The early pharaohs were buried beneath these small pyramids. As time passed, the Egyptians began constructing large, impressive edifices entirely of stone. These are the structures that typically come to mind when one thinks of pyramids, such as the Great Pyramid at Giza. The granite blocks used for these pyramids were quarried near Aswan and transported down the Nile on barges. Later, during the so-called Middle Kingdom, the royal tombs were smaller and made of millions of large, sun-dried mud and straw bricks. These bricks were faced with massive slabs of smooth granite to give the appearance of traditional stone pyramids. During this period, which lasted approximately 1660 to 1445 BC, the Israelites took up residence in Egypt, 1 Kings 6:1. As the Bible tells us, Joseph, son of Jacob, and later his brothers, settled in Egypt. They had numerous descendants, and the Israelite population was rapidly growing. Seeing the multitude of them, Pharaoh, concerned that they might turn on the Egyptians and take over the country, enslaved them at some point after the time of Joseph. Exodus chapter 1:8. The Bible tells us that during that period, the Israelite slaves were forced to make mud bricks. Exodus 5:10-14. This detail is consistent with the type of brick used to construct pyramids. In fact, according to Exodus chapter 5:7, Pharaoh told the taskmasters, "You shall no longer give the people straw to make brick as before. Let them go and gather straw for themselves," meaning that from that time the Israelites were to make bricks of stone. While we are not told specifically that the bricks were used for pyramids, it seems plausible that they were. The Jewish historian Josephus supports this theory. They, the Egyptian taskmasters, set them also to build pyramids. Antiquities 229.1. The slavery of the Israelites ended abruptly at the Exodus. According to archaeologist A.R. David, the slaves disappeared suddenly. She admits that the quantity, range, and type of articles of everyday use which were left behind in the houses may indeed suggest that the departure of the Israelites was sudden and unpremeditated. The quotation is taken from her book, The Pyramid Builders of Ancient Egypt. The Egyptian army that was destroyed at the Red Sea was led by Pharaoh himself, Exodus 14:6. This could account for the fact that no burial place or mummy has been found for the 13th dynasty Pharaoh Neferhotep I, thus confirming that biblical account of Exodus was credible. Pyramids are not mentioned as such in the canonical scriptures. However, the Apocrypha, approved as canonical by Catholics and Copts, does mention pyramids in 1 Maccabees 13:28-38, in connection with 7 pyramids built by Simon Maccabeus as monuments to his parents. Pre-Alexandrian Jews would not have used the word pyramid. However, in the Old Testament we do see the word migdol. This word is translated tower and could represent any large monolith, obelisk, or pyramid. Migdol is the Hebrew word used to describe the Tower of Babel in Genesis 11:4, and it is translated similarly in Ezekiel 29:10 and 30:6. In describing a pyramid, Migdol is the word the Hebrews would have most likely used. Furthermore, Migdol is a place name in Exodus 14:2, Numbers 33:7, Jeremiah 44:1, and Jeremiah 46:14, and could mean that a tower or monument was located there. The Bible does not explicitly state that the Israelites built pyramids, nor does it use the word pyramid in association with the Hebrews. We may surmise that the children of Israel worked on the pyramids while enslaved by the Egyptian. Such constructions required very hard labor and the workforce of tens of thousands of slaves. It also took decades to erect such grandiose structures. As the Israelites' captivity in Egypt lasted 4 centuries, 430 years to be precise, as stated in Bible's Exodus 12:40, it is quite plausible to suggest that they took part in the construction of the pyramids. Some scientists argue that the Egyptian pharaohs used paid labor instead of slaves, based on the evidence that the workers were treated well and were locals. How do these scientists know that the workers were treated well? But even if they were, slaves too should have been treated well, mainly because they needed to be fed well to be fit for such a back-breaking labor. The other argument that the builders must have been locals, thus could not have been slaves, suggests that the so-called scientists are either ignorant or deliberately misleading. The enslaved Israelites had lived in Egypt for over 4 centuries, and by the time of Exodus, their population was close to 2 million. In Exodus 12:37 we read, "The Israelites journeyed from Ramesses to Succoth. There were about 600,000 men on foot, besides women and children." With such an impressive number of Israelite residents, who, if not them, were locals? Anyone who comes up with such sensational new discoveries is as credible as Charles Darwin, with his theory that we all originated from some prebiotic soup.